40 board members held their breath. Not because of the quarterly numbers projected on the wall behind her. Not because Seo Min-jun had walked in 7 minutes late with that face. The one that made senior executives suddenly find their shoelaces interesting. They held their breath because a 4-year-old boy had just walked to the head of the table, pressed both palms flat on the glass surface, looked at the empty chair and said, "That's where my mommy sits." Nobody laughed. Nobody moved. Seo Min-jun stood at the door of his own boardroom, his jaw tight, his eyes moving from his son to the chair. Her chair, and back again. Because the boy was right. And every single person in that room knew it. Welcome to Black Silk Stories, the home of Afro-Korean stories that hit different. Subscribe, drop a comment, and do not go anywhere. This is only the beginning. 3 hours earlier, Imani Seo did not eat breakfast. She had not eaten breakfast on a weekday in 11 months. She knew this because Brianna kept an actual tally on a sticky note on the refrigerator. Yellow, slightly curled at the corner, written in red marker that said, "Days Imani skipped breakfast this year. 211. You updated it again." Imani did not look up from her laptop. "I update it every morning." Bree leaned against the kitchen counter, mug in both hands. "It's called documentation. You should try it." "Oh wait, you document everything except your own life." Bree. Imani. A silence passed between them the way silences only can between sisters. Full, loaded, and somehow louder than an argument. Jai was shuffled in from the hallway in his dinosaur slippers, his hair pressed flat on one side from sleep. He climbed onto the stool beside Imani, said nothing, and reached for her coffee. "That's not for you, baby." "I know." He put it back. "I just wanted to touch it." Bree stifled a smile behind her mug. Imani finally looked up. Her son's face in the morning was the only thing that could do that. Pull her eyes away from spreadsheets, reports, anything. He had Min-jun's jaw, sharp even at 4 years old, but her eyes. Big, dark, searching. Always searching her face for something she was never sure she was giving him enough of. "Did you sleep okay?" she asked. "Appa didn't come home again." The kitchen went quiet in a different way. Bree turned toward the window. Imani closed her laptop. "He had a late meeting, Jaiwoo." "He always has a late meeting." Jaiwoo picked up a piece of toast from Bree's plate, studied it like it had personally offended him. "Does he have meetings on Saturday too?" "Sometimes." "What about Sunday?" Imani opened her mouth, closed it. "Baby, eat your toast." He ate it. But his eyes stayed on her face the whole time, still searching. The Seo Group headquarters occupied the top 4 floors of a glass tower in Gangnam that Min-jun had designed himself, or rather, had approved the design of, which in his language meant the same thing. Everything in the building reflected something he had decided. The lighting, the furniture, the temperature, kept at exactly 20 degrees Celsius because he once read that cognitive performance peaked in cooler environments. Imani had read the same article. She had kept the temperature at 22 degrees in her office because she grew up in Atlanta and her body still had not fully accepted Korean winters 6 years later. Nobody questioned it. They questioned very little about Director Seo. Not her decisions, not her hours, not the fact that she had quietly restructured the entire Southeast Asia division in 4 months while everyone was watching Min-jun close the Busan deal. She was good at being invisible in plain sight. Her assistant, Park Soo-yeon, met her at the elevator with a tablet, 2 folders, and the expression of someone who had already survived 3 near disasters before 8 a.m. The Hanguk media rep pushed the 10 o'clock to 11. Chairman Seo's office called, his personal call, not the secretary, asking if you would attend the board meeting at 2 p.m. And, Soo-yeon lowered her voice slightly. Director Kwon submitted his counter-proposal. "It contradicts yours on every major point." "Of course it does." Imani took the folders without breaking stride. "Pull up my original and highlight every point he changed. I want to see exactly how creative he got." "Already done." "And tell Chairman Seo's office yes." Soo-yeon hesitated. "Director Seo, the 2 p.m. is the full board. All 40 members. Chairman Seo has never invited you to." "I know what it is," Soo-yeon SSI. Another beat. "Yes, Director." What Soo-yeon did not know, what almost no one in the building knew, was that Imani had been preparing for that 2 p.m. meeting for 6 weeks. Not because she was invited. She had not been invited then. She had simply known it was coming, known what was at stake, and built her case anyway. That was the thing about being overlooked. You saw everything. Minjun was already in his office when she passed it. She knew without looking. She could tell by the shift in energy near his floor, the way his assistant sat slightly straighter, the way conversations clipped themselves short near his door. She did not stop. He did. Imani. His voice came from behind her. Low. Steady. The voice he used when he was not asking a question but phrasing one as her name. She turned. He was standing in his doorway, jacket already on, no tie. He had stopped wearing ties 8 months ago and nobody had dared comment. The board meeting, he said. My father invited you. He did. I didn't know. I know you didn't. Something moved across his face. Not quite discomfort. Not quite something else. Minjun had a talent for expressions that lived in between feelings. She had spent 3 years trying to read them and another 2 pretending she had stopped. We should talk before 2, he said. We can talk at 2. She turned back toward her office. We'll have an audience. You prefer that. She felt him watching her all the way down the hall. Jaiwoo arrived at 12:47 p.m. This was not planned. Bree called first, 1 ring, which was their signal for not an emergency but you should know. And Imani stepped out of a pre-meeting review to take it. Before you react, Bree started. Bree. His preschool called. He told his teacher he had a stomachache. They called me because you were in meetings and Minjun's assistant said he was unreachable. Is he sick? No. I took him to the doctor. She said he's fine. Physically. A pause. He told the doctor he had a stomachache because he missed his mom. Imani pressed 2 fingers to the space between her eyebrows. He's with me now, Bree continued. I'm in the lobby. I didn't know where else. His preschool won't take him back today. And I have that immigration appointment I cannot reschedule, Imani. I've moved it 3 times. Bring him up. To the office? Bring him up, Bree. Jai was sat in the corner of Imani's office in her spare chair, which she had pushed against the wall and surrounded with a folder barricade so he felt like he had his own space. She had given him her iPad, her wireless earphones, too big for his ears so they kept slipping, and the emergency snack pack she kept in her bottom drawer for days exactly like this one. He was quiet for 40 minutes. Imani worked, reviewed, marked up Director Kwan's counterproposal with a precision that was almost surgical, noting not just what he had changed but why, the pattern underneath the changes, the agenda that the changed numbers were designed to serve. At 1:38 p.m. her phone showed a reminder. Board meeting 22 minutes. She saved her work. Stood. Reached for her blazer. Mommy. Yes, baby. Where are you going? I have a meeting downstairs. I'll be back. She crossed to him, crouched to his level, straightened the collar of his shirt out of habit. CNSSI is right outside. If you need anything. Can I come? No, Jaiwuya. Why? Because it's a grown-up meeting. He considered this with the gravity that only 4-year-olds could bring to obvious information. Are there other kids there? No. Then why is it fun for grown-ups? Despite everything, the 1:40 p.m. reminder, the folder under her arm, the 6 weeks of preparation pressing against the inside of her chest, she laughed. A real one. Short but real. It's not fun, she admitted. That's the secret about grown-up meetings. Then why do you go? She kissed his forehead. Stood up. Moved toward the door. Stay here. I'll be back before you finish your snacks. She was wrong about that. The boardroom was already half full when she arrived, and the shift was immediate. The micro-adjustments of people who had not expected her. Chairs turned slightly, eyes that slid sideways and then corrected themselves. Director Kwan, seated 3 chairs from the head, looked at her folder and then at her face with an expression he did not fully manage to hide. She sat. Not at the side. Not in the observer's row where guests sometimes sat. She moved to the empty chair. The one at the head of the table's left hand. Not the CEO's chair, that was Minjun's at the far end, but the operations chair. The chair that had technically belonged to the chief operations officer position that had been vacant for 14 months since Director Han retired. Nobody said anything. She opened her folder. Chairman Seo, Minjun's father, 71 years old, the kind of man who had built his first company before he turned 30 and had been quietly terrifying ever since, sat at the right hand of the table. He watched her sit down. A small nod barely visible. Minjun walked in at exactly 2 p.m. His eyes found her immediately. Found the chair. Held. He sat at the head without a word. The meeting began. For 50 minutes it was numbers, projections, the Busan deal aftermath, and Director Kwan's counter-proposal, which Kwan presented with the confidence of a man who believed his version of the truth was the only one in the room. Imani let him finish. Then she opened her folder. The counter-proposal restructures the revenue-sharing model in a way that looks conservative on paper, she began, and her voice was level, unhurried, the way she had trained it to be in rooms where people were waiting for her to flinch. But if you apply it to the projected market expansion over 36 months, the variance compounds. By year 3, CO Group absorbs 60% of the risk and retains 40% of the gain. That's not a conservative model. That's a transfer. Silence. A transfer to whom? Chairman CO's voice was quiet. To the 3 external stakeholders, Director Kwan's proposal added in Clause 9. She turned the folder so the relevant page faced the center of the table. They're not named as primary beneficiaries. They're listed as operational partners. But the fee structure in Addendum B functions as a dividend. I've prepared a side-by-side comparison of both proposals mapped across the 36-month window, if the board would like to see it. Director Kwan's neck had gone red above his collar. Minjun had not moved. Had not looked away from her face since she started speaking. Please share it, Chairman CO said. Suyin, who Imani had positioned outside with printed copies, because she had learned that a room full of powerful men believe things faster when they were holding paper, opened the door on cue and distributed 16 copies. The room read. The room was quiet in a way that meant something was shifting inside it. And that was the moment the door opened again. Not Suyin this time. Jaiwoo. In his dinosaur slippers, he must have kicked off the indoor shoes she had put him in. His hair slightly flattened, one earphone hanging off his shoulder. He walked in like he owned the architecture. 40 pairs of eyes turned. He did not notice. Or if he did, he didn't care. He scanned the room the way children scan rooms, not for power or hierarchy but for the one face that mattered. He found Imani. He looked at the chair beside her, the one at the head of the table's left where she sat. Then he walked to it, pressed both small palms flat on the glass surface, looked directly at it and said, "That's where my mommy sits." Nobody laughed. Nobody moved. Minjun stood at the door. He had half risen from his chair when the door opened, and now he was suspended between standing and sitting, his eyes moving from Jaiwoo to the chair to Imani's face. His son had just told 40 board members what 14 months of internal politics had refused to say out loud. Imani looked at her boy. Jaiwoo looked back at her, satisfied, the way children are when they have simply told the truth and cannot understand why adults find it complicated. "Jaiwoo," she said softly. "I finished my snacks." He held up the empty pack as evidence. "You said you'd be back." The boardroom did not recover its rhythm. Not immediately. Chairman CO was the first to move. And what he did was not what anyone expected. He did not signal security. Did not look at Minjun. Did not clear his throat in that particular way that meant remove the disruption. He looked at Jaiwoo. And something in the old man's face, something that had no business appearing in a boardroom, softened. "Jaiwoo." His voice came out different from his boardroom voice. Quieter. The Korean grandfather underneath the chairman. "Come here." Jaiwoo looked at his mother for permission. She gave the smallest nod. He walked around the table to Chairman CO without a trace of intimidation. The old man pulled him up onto his knee like it was a completely normal occurrence, like the 40 executives watching could simply adjust. Most of them looked at their papers. Director Kwan looked at Minjun. Minjun looked at no one. He had sat back down, his hands flat on the table, his expression locked in that space between feelings where Imani had stopped trying to follow him. "Should we recess?" One of the senior directors offered carefully. "No." Chairman CO's hand rested on Jaiwoo's back. "We'll finish." Director CO. He looked at Imani, and the title landed differently now in front of everyone, deliberate. "Please continue." She continued. She laid out the full 36-month comparison. She walked them through the compounding risk variance with the patience of someone who had built the argument from the ground up, and was not afraid of its weight. She answered 3 questions from the floor, 2 from Chairman CO, and 1, the sharpest one, the one about the Addendum B fee structure. That came from the last direction she expected. "Minjun, if we remove the 3 external partners entirely," he said, "and reroute the operational support budget internally, what does the gain projection look like in year 2? She found the page. 11% higher. And year 3. 19. A beat. Then that's the model. He said it to the room, not to her. But his eyes were on her when he said it. Director Seo's original proposal. We move forward with that. Director Kwan's neck went from red to something approaching purple. Imani wrote nothing down. She did not need to. She just turned the page in her folder and waited for the vote, which came in 11 minutes and landed exactly where she had spent 6 weeks building it to land. Jae-woo fell asleep on Chairman Seo's knee before the vote concluded. The boardroom emptied the way boardrooms do after a significant decision. Quickly, quietly, people processing in the elevator rather than in the room. Director Kwan left without making eye contact with anyone, which was its own kind of answer. Chairman Seo transferred Jae-woo, still asleep deeply, the way only children can sleep in inconvenient places, to Imani's arms with a care that was almost ceremonial. He has your stubbornness, the old man said. He has his father's timing, she replied. Chairman Seo looked at her for a moment. Then at Minjun, who was still at the head of the table, still seated, papers in front of him that he was not reading. Fix it, the old man said. To which one of them was unclear. Possibly both. He left. The room was theirs. Imani stood with Jae-woo against her shoulder, his weight warm and complete, his breath slow against her neck. She reached for her folder with her free hand. You knew about the addendum. Minjun's voice came from the head of the table. He had not moved. 6 weeks ago. You didn't tell me. You were in Busan. I was in Busan for 3 weeks. You had 3 weeks before that. She looked at him. Really looked. The way she had trained herself not to do in professional settings because it cost her something she had stopped being able to afford. Would you have listened? The question sat between them like furniture, solid, taking up space, impossible to walk around. Minjun had no answer for it. What he had instead was the expression she knew best. The one that meant he was building an answer, engineering it the way he engineered everything, testing its structure before he let it out. She did not wait for it. I have to put him down somewhere. She adjusted Jae-woo against her shoulder. His neck will hurt if he stays like this. My office has a couch. I know where your office is, Minjun. His office was exactly 20 degrees. She felt it the moment she walked in, the controlled cool of it, the deliberate temperature, everything optimized for performance. She had always thought it said something about him that he had designed a space for maximum output and minimum comfort. She laid Jae-woo on the couch, removed her blazer and covered him with it. He shifted, sighed, pressed his face into the fabric. Minjun stood near the window. Soul spread out behind him, gray and glittering, indifferent. He walked in there like he'd been in that room before, Minjun said. He was watching his son. He hasn't. I know. A pause. He walked in like he belonged. He was looking for me. She straightened. That's all he was doing. He wasn't making a statement. He's 4. He made one anyway. Imani clasped her hands in front of her, a posture she used when she needed something to hold herself with. What do you want to talk about, Minjun? The proposal? The vote? Kwan. You. The word landed without ceremony. You've been running my operations division for 14 months without the title, he said, his back still to her. Without the salary. Without the chair. I had the chair today. You shouldn't have had to take it. It should have been given. She said nothing. Outside, a cloud shifted and the afternoon light changed the whole texture of the room in 1 second. My father invited you because I didn't. He turned then. I need you to understand that I know that. Understanding it and me accepting it are 2 different things. I know that too. Jae-woo made a small sound in his sleep, not waking, just registering some internal dream event, and both of them looked at him at the same time. The way parents do. The automatic redirect that children install in you without asking. He told his teacher he had a stomachache, Imani said. He told the doctor he missed me. She picked up the empty snack pack from where Jae-woo had carried it in, turned it in her hands. He's 4 years old and he already knows how to name something missing. Minjun was quiet. Do you know what that costs a child? Her voice did not waver, but it changed. Dropped out of the boardroom register entirely into something older and more tired. To be that aware that early? To scan a room for the person who should be there, and do the math when they're not. Imani. He walked into that boardroom because the snacks ran out and I said I'd be back. She set the empty pack on his desk. Not for any other reason. Just that. Because I made him a promise and I didn't keep it. And that's what 4 looks like when it trusts you and you're not there. The room held the words. Minjun moved from the window. Not toward her, sideways, the way he moved when he was thinking and his body needed to participate. He stopped at the end of the couch where Jae-woo slept. Looked down at his son for a long moment. Then he did something she had not seen him do in a long time. He crouched down. At his son's level. Expensive suit, Seoul's skyline behind him. The entire apparatus of his authority reduced to just a man looking at a sleeping child and trying to locate himself inside the image. I don't know how to be in a room with him the way you are, he said. Quietly. The way confessions come, without eye contact. I watch you and it looks like breathing. Like you don't have to think about it. With me it's... He stopped. Started again. It's another thing I'm afraid of doing wrong. Imani looked at the top of his head. At the familiar slope of his shoulders. At the father her son deserved, hiding inside the man who had built walls so efficient they kept out the cold and the warmth in equal measure. Minjun. Her voice was soft. Not forgiving yet. Not there. But soft. He doesn't need you to be perfect at it. He pointed at an empty chair in a room full of strangers and told everyone it was mine. You know what he would do if you were the one who wasn't there. Minjun looked up. The same thing, she said. Without hesitating. Jae-woo woke up 20 minutes later with the specific disorientation of a child who had fallen asleep in one world and woken in another. He sat up, looked at the blazer, looked at the room, found his father first. Minjun was at his desk now, but not working, just sitting, and then found Imani by the window where she had taken her spot. Appa. His voice was still blurred with sleep. Here. Minjun stood. Jae-woo held his arms up. It was such a simple gesture. Such a complete, uncomplicated request. No subtext. No strategy. Just arms up, which in the language of small children means, I have decided you are safe and I want to be held. Minjun crossed the room and picked him up. Jae-woo immediately put his face against his father's neck, his small fingers curling into the collar of the suit jacket, and exhaled long, slow, satisfied, the way people exhale when they finally arrive somewhere they have been trying to reach. Imani watched. She felt it move through her. Not jealousy, not relief exactly, something in between that did not have a clean name. The particular ache of watching two people you love find each other in real time. Hungry? Minjun asked his son. What do you want? Jae-woo lifted his head. Thought about it with great seriousness. Tteokbokki. Your mom doesn't like tteokbokki. I know. He looked at Imani. She can have something else. Imani pressed her lips together. Thank you, Jae-woo. Very generous. You're welcome. He put his face back against Minjun's neck. Job done. Minjun looked at her over their son's head. Something in his eyes, not the boardroom version of him, not the 20-degree version, the one underneath all of it, the one she had married before the empire got too loud. Dinner, he said. Not a question. Not quite a request. The word in between, which was his version of asking. She considered it. 11 months of breakfast skipped. 14 months of a title withheld. 6 weeks of working in a silence that she had filled with strategy because strategy was safer than saying, I am disappearing inside this building and nobody is noticing. But also, a man crouched at the level of his sleeping son, admitting fear in the only way he knew how. Also, a boy who walked into a room of 40 strangers to find her. Also, arms held up, which meant, I have decided you are safe. Not tteokbokki, she said. Something eased in Minjun's face. Not tteokbokki, he agreed. They left the building at 6:12 p.m. Minjun in the front, Jae-woo between them holding one hand each, swinging slightly in the way children swing when they have achieved exactly what they wanted and the world feels correctly arranged. The lobby staff watched them go. Suyeon, collecting her things at her desk, looked up as they passed. She noted the time. She noted the configuration, the three of them, the swinging child, the particular quality of the silence between Director Seo and the CEO, which was different from the silence it had been at 8 a.m. She updated exactly nothing. Some things did not belong in a report. Outside, Seoul was doing what Seoul does at early evening, loud and luminous and completely unbothered by the private negotiations of the people moving through it. Street vendors. The smell of something grilling 3 stalls down. A subway entrance exhaling warm air. Jaiwo stopped walking. Both of them stopped with him. Automatic synchronized the muscle memory of parenthood. He looked up at his mother, then at his father. His face held the expression of a child assembling information. Are you fighting? He asked. No, Imani said. You were before. We talked, Minjun said. That's different. Jaiwo appeared unconvinced. Auntie Bree says talking and fighting are the same thing. She says grown-ups just change the volume. A beat of silence. Then Imani laughed, the real kind, the second one today, the kind that came from somewhere below strategy and exhaustion, from the part of her that Jaiwo could always locate. Minjun was looking at her when she laughed. He looked at her the way he had looked at her the first time, across a conference table in a different city 6 years ago, when she had dismantled his entire proposal in 12 minutes and he had thought, without meaning to, who is she? Auntie Bree, Minjun said carefully, is not wrong. Jaiwo nodded, vindicated, then held his arms up again to Minjun, who lifted him, settled him against his side, and reached his other arm out toward Imani. She took his hand. The three of them moved into the evening, not fixed, not resolved into something clean and finished. Real life does not do that, and neither does love. But moving together, which on most days is the closest thing to whole that people actually get. Later that night, after takbaki for Jaiwo and dekalbi for the adults, because they had compromised, which was itself a kind of beginning, after Jaiwo had been put to bed with his dinosaur slippers lined up at the door and the specific negotiation of 3 bedtime stories that always became 4, Imani stood at the kitchen counter. Bree's sticky note was still on the refrigerator. Days Imani skipped breakfast this year. 211. She took it down, turned it over, wrote on the back, tomorrow eat breakfast, stuck it back. Simple. Insufficient. Completely true. Minjun came in, jacket gone, sleeves rolled, and stopped when he saw the note. Read it. Said nothing for a moment. Then he opened the refrigerator and took out 2 glasses of water. The thing he did when he was staying, when he was choosing to be in a room instead of engineering a reason to leave it. He set one in front of her. Sat down at the counter. She sat across from him. They did not talk about the board meeting. Did not talk about Kwan or the title or the 36-month projection. Those things would need their own conversations, careful and probably difficult. She knew that, and so did he. But that was tomorrow. Tonight, in the quiet of a kitchen in Seoul, with a 4-year-old asleep down the hall who had walked into a room of 40 people to point at a chair and tell them the truth, they sat with their water glasses and the particular piece of 2 people who have decided, without announcing it, to try. Not to be perfect, just to try. And in the morning, for the first time in 212 days, Imani Co ate breakfast. She made enough for 2. You just finished. A 4-year-old walked into his boardroom and said what I couldn't, an Afro-Korean story. And if this story held you, that means you belong here. Black silk stories exist for every woman who has ever run an empire in borrowed shoes, for every child who has ever pointed at an empty chair, and for every love that had to learn how to come back to the table. Subscribe to Black Silk Stories. Share this with someone who needs it. And leave a comment. Tell us whose chair this reminded you of. The next story is already waiting. And trust us, it hits harder.